Hi, this is Mr. Evans. This video is just going to summarise the key points as I see them from the 2017 Examiner's Report. So let's get into it. So the first thing that I want to highlight is that the Chief Examiner says that students should consider all of the demands of a question and make effective use of the information provided. So we looked at question 20 where we looked at income elasticity of demand for tea and coffee. It says here, you've got to use the data that they provide in those questions in order to access those application marks. In terms of definitions, this would apply to the 9 and the 25 mark questions. Simply defining top terms at the start of an answer is not necessary, provided an understanding of the relevant aspect of the topic is shown in the answer. Defining terms where it is not specifically asked for is using time, which could be more effectively used to actually answer the question. Okay, so it does say that you don't need to start the answer with a definition. When I looked at the 9 mark questions, I did say that, but given the fact that there are AO1 marks available in a 9 mark question, if you're unsure how to answer the question, but you know a definition, a relevant definition, or maybe a formula if that's appropriate, if you just put that, you might get a couple of marks for knowledge. Okay, so if you're going to go ahead and answer the question, you're going to show the examiner that you understand the key terms, so you don't need to put them in. But maybe if you're going to skip the question or you're not 100% sure on your answer, a definition isn't a bad use of your time. And then we get onto the 25 mark questions. Thinking about the demands of specific questions is particularly important in section C. So we looked at question 22, which was about the extent to which delegation was a good way of increasing productivity, not whether it was the best way. In other words, you had to say whether or not delegation is a good way to increase productivity, but it's not asking what's the best way to increase productivity. Okay. The focus of a strong response was on the factors that determined how effective greater delegation might be. So in other words, if the staff are highly trained and experienced, then delegation might be good. If the organisation is a growing organisation, then they might need to delegate in order to increase productivity. All right, so they're not asking about other factors. They're just asking about delegation. So it's really important to stay focused on the question. The questions are very evaluative. There are 10 marks available for evaluation in these 25 mark questions. Students need to consider the underlying debate in the question and focus on this. There's a tendency among students to start writing on the one hand, on the other hand, and then have little to say in the conclusion, which means there's little judgment. It says here, whilst a predetermined structure can help some students organise their ideas, it can also mean they're not thinking enough about the key demands of the given question or answering it directly. Students need to be encouraged to think about what the question is asking and what their answer is. The holistic approach to marking rewards the answer as a whole. To what extent does it meet the demands of the question? If a question asks about the extent to which something works, there is the automatic it does, it doesn't, and little or no focus on what it depends on, then that's not going to be a great answer to the question. So what they're saying here is that, there is no structure, all right? That you need to write analytically, you need to give some examples of context, you need to have a conclusion to the question, but it doesn't have to be on the one hand, on the other hand. You can be quite free in how you answer the question, as long as you answer the question. And the examiner, as long as you've answered the question, it says here the holistic approach to marking rewards the answer as a whole. So, don't stress out about, you've got a certain structure in mind that you need to fit your answer to. That's not the case. As long as you answer the question with the features that we've talked about, a depth and range of knowledge, application to some sort of business scenarios, a clear chain of argument, and with evaluation, then you're going to get good marks. It's the quality of the response that matters, and time thinking about what a question requires is time well spent. So that's basically saying, the importance of just taking your time before you start writing. I always recommend that students know what their conclusion is going to be before they start writing. That keeps your essay focused. It makes it read well, and you can be thinking throughout the essay, how it's contributing to what your conclusion is.